By that time, the LAPD was out on me real tough. They were driving through the hood looking for everybody tall, thinking that they were Thumper. So I had went to Inglewood and stayed with my my girlfriend Monique's sister named Robin. While I was there, I would sit back and I would think about everything that took place prior to her, telling me this stuff. And that message really made me fear making the type of deals that I did. And what I mean by making a deal is that I end up getting busted for trying to sell some cocaine. And I went on a 90-day observation. And as I said earlier, I had just met my first girlfriend. And it's something about when you get busted, you always go to jail. And for me, I was always attracted to religious services because it was a part of what I was missing on the streets. And when they told me that I was going to go on a 90-day observation to the youth authority, it seemed like all the gangster in me just left. I started thinking about the fact that this woman that I met, Monique, she was not only my first girlfriend, but she was like a perfect match for me. And it meant at that time more to me than the hood. It's like when you're waiting in front of a judge and you're thinking about possibly being sent away for what can be years because in the youth authority it's cracking. And I know if I would have went to the youth authority, I would have been in there for some years. So one day I was laying in my bed, and at this time it says I was doing what my grandmother would do. I was speaking to God, and I told him, I said, Lord, if you get me out of this, let me go home to be with my girlfriend. I promise I'll leave my friends alone. And so I went back to court and they sent me to camp. And because I played basketball, there were high schools that were contacting the probation department and they were saying, look, we have interest in this guy, man. We want to, bring him to our school. We got everything set up for him, probation officer on campus, everything. And so I'm like, man, the Lord did all that for you, gave you what you wanted. And you got out and you started doing shootings, jumping on people, all kinds of things. And at the time, I didn't know why I was doing it. That's the point. I had love for the homies and everything like that. And my love for God was even stronger. But it's like when you're away from a religious community and you're around a bunch of people that only influence you to do the things that they are doing, you lose touch of that. And so when the lady told me that, I stayed with my girlfriend's sister for a few months. And Gary Aspinall was all through the hood looking for me. Where Thumper at? When you see Thumper, we gonna kill him. And so all of the people that I would normally talk to, my, spiritual advisors, especially Moses Cooper. Moses Cooper, after leaving the foster home, he was a pastor. He had got his own church over in Broadway Hood. And he was so much into teaching the Bible that he would like to go into a lot of historical things. And I remember disagreeing with him on something, even at that young age, because I went back and read it for myself. And it was concerning Ishmael being the firstborn son of Abraham. Well, later on, when I went to prison, that solved its own, you know, issue with me through my studies. But I ended up forgetting everything that lady told me. And I was back in the hood and I was doing all kind of crazy stuff up until the day that I got busted. And I ended up in the county jail. And when I was in the county jail, it was wild and open at the time. People were doing some of everything. But this isn't the talk about what they were doing. This is about the religious experiences. I remember meeting Tweet from Compton, Ducky Hood. And we had a robbing crew in the county jail. And one day Tweet said, hey Thump, cuz I see us a lick down the hall. So I'm like, let's go get it. So we went down there, and there was a man in the cell. The cell was cracked. Tweet rushed up in the cell, and he fired on the man, and he took his bag. And when I looked over, right, I saw that he was reading his Bible. And my whole soul just drained out of me because he looked up at me and I looked at him. And I went back down to the cell and I said, hey, Tweet, give me that. He was like, what? I said, no, give me that. So I took the money and I walked back down there and I gave it to the brother. And I said, hey, man, I'm sorry about that. And he looked up at me and he said, bless you. And I didn't know what to say. But when I went back down there with Tweet, he was like, cuz, what's up? I told him that wasn't right. That was one of my first experiences. I remember when I was going to trial, they were sending us to Wayside. And when I got into the dorm, there were some Muslims. There was a guy from the Moorish Science Temple. There was a brother who I remember from the county jail named, no, Malik was Moorish Science Temple. There was two other brothers. And it was the first time that I had seen the Quran. And so I said, what is this? He said, that's the Holy Quran. I'm like, and what is that? He said, that's the last revelation from God. And I was thinking to myself, the Bible is the last revelation from God. I said, can I read that? He told me, go and wash your hands. So that kind of had an impact on me. I'm like, wow, he made me wash my hands before I touched this book. So when I came back, I started to open and I read a few passages, and it was so clear. It's as if it wasn't telling a story, it was talking to me. So I quickly went to the index to look up what it said about Jesus. And when I read what it said, I was hooked. I started going back every day to listen to what these brothers were saying in the back of the dorm. And at the time, I was pretty known in the dorm until Big Rebo from Compton pulled up. Oh my goodness, this was an experience, the first time I ever had to choose between gang banging and what I believe. Rebo was in his own right. I didn't know who he was at the time. I was only 21 years old. Well, we was rapping in the dorm, beating on bunks and all this stuff. Big Rebo, he came back there and I guess he wanted to flex. And I'm the biggest skinny dude in there, so he flexed at me. And so I'm saying, I'm like, man, in my mind, I'm saying to myself, I can't back down from nobody. You know what I'm saying? And so Big Rebo said something to me. I said, no, I ain't doing shit. Excuse my French. But he said, what you say? And I told him repeated what I said. He said, roll your shit up. Rebo was swole too. And so I told him straight up. I mean, I can't punk out in front of everybody. And if you know Rebo, Big Rebo will tell you this story. If anybody know Big Rebo, ask him this story. And so Big Rebo said, roll your shit up. I said, I ain't rolling no numbers. It was some homies from Long Beach there. And they kind of, got in between and everything like that. And Rebo was hot. I don't think like I said, I didn't know who Rebo was at the time. Rebo was he was a big head. He was a top dog, triple OG. And I seen Rebo at court, and we was in the elevator together. And he came over to me. He said, "Boy," He said, "What?" He said, I got respect for you." He said, "You hold yours." He said, "And that's the true sign of somebody who's down." But he said, "Man, I had to check some of my homies, man." He said, "We up in the dorm, chilling, and they said don't have us to go get Thumper," and I laughed about it. But I ended up seeing him up at the Bay, and Rebo, he turned out to be real cool with me. He did what he did, I did what I did, but every time I seen Rebo, it was cool. But that was an experience for me to let me know that even though people take gangbanging as a joke, some people take religion as a joke as well. So once I had that experience with Rebo, I never looked back when it came to what I represent. From that point on, I was interested in my religious studies. At the same time, I was being motivated through a lot of the nationalism that was going on because it was the first time I was experiencing racism in the county jail with white officers. And one day we was getting on the bus, and I remember there was a brother named Rome from Compton Park Village, and him and another brother had noticed that there was a Damu from Athens Park on the bus, and they was gonna come out the chains to jump on the brother. Y'all remember he had a mole on his forehead, and I didn't like that because you had some white boys on the bus. They was laughing about it, telling each other that this finna go down, that they finna do this. And I told Rome, I said, "Look, Rome," I said, "Man, if y'all gonna rush dude, man, let me up out my cuffs." So Rome let me up out my cuffs, and as soon as they swung on that brother from Athens Park, I went up there and domed the white boys and cracked his head all on the front of the headrest. And they was like, "Oh my goodness, this white boy's head bleeding everywhere." We get on the white boy, he put his head down. So when we on our way to the Compton court, we on the freeway. The police look up and they see that this white boy leaking all in the bus. They turn the bus all the way around, take us to the county jail, strip us out, looking for weapons and all of that. And I didn't think about it at the time, but I said to myself, "Man, this is the first time that I ever put in some work regarding something other than my neighborhood that meant something to me." And it was spiritually motivated because had that white boy not did what he did, I would have had no reason to attack him. But I was trying to send a message to brothers that, look, man, this is not about the BS no more. This is more serious than that. So by the time I got to the county jail, by the time I got to the penitentiary, I had been doing some reading, and I remember the first time I heard somebody reading something in Arabic, and it stuck me so hard. I was like, "What is that?" He said, "This is the language of the Quran." And I was like, "This is what I heard when I passed by that chapel in the county one day." And there was some brothers in there. The service was just opening, and I heard somebody say, "Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين." And when I read the translation, it was like hearing what I used to hear in Sunday school when they would say the Lord's Prayer. But this one here meant so much to me that I had to memorize it. I'll go forward with the next part of this video in part 3.